diferente hubiese estado mejor. Me las paso, te amamos, acá estamos re emocionadas. Esa es la pregunta, gracias.
Yeah, the joke everybody has, like every single writer, any writer who says, "Oh, I would never, ever, ever have changed a thing," you know, no, that's not true. You wish you could work on your book forever and ever and ever, but they're, because you always have new ideas. You would always play with the story more. But at a certain point, you have to say, "This is done. I am happy with the story," because otherwise it never gets out in the world. Are there things I would do differently? Yes. I haven't yet written something that is really big and important in a book that I really regret. It's more like I wish the scene started a little earlier. I wish this, I don't think that joke's as funny as I thought it was when I wrote it at 3 in the morning, stuff like that. But there's never been anything really big that I've wanted to back down from.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Hago la pregunta en nombre de mi hermana, Ana, porque ella es sorda. Es la directora editorial de la revista Huellas de Tinta, que yo te hice una entrevista en algún momento por chat. De paso hago el chivo de la revista Huellas de Tinta, literatura juvenil, la pueden encontrar en internet. La pregunta de ella es, ¿cuál fue el libro que más disfrutaste escribir y en qué estás trabajando ahora? Gracias.
There's no one book that was the most fun. I mean, there are things that are really great about writing all of them, and then there are also things about writing all of them that just made you want to hit your head against the wall repeatedly. Probably, I would say the most fun time was probably writing the second half of Aguas Oscuras. The minute the ship hits that iceberg, I am a sick, twisted sadist because I thought that was fun. I really did. Right, that ship going down. That was tremendous fun to do. Let's see, what I am writing right now is, it doesn't have a title yet. It will be the first book of something that's going to be called the Firebird Trilogy. And it's sort of a science fiction thing. Essentially, Marguerite, the daughter of 2 famous scientists, is chasing her father's killer through alternate dimensions. And the way traveling between dimensions works in these books is you actually appear within your other self. And so she's appearing in all these different versions of herself and having to sort of take over and lead that Marguerite's life. Some of these worlds are very like her own. Some of them are very radically different. And as she, there are some where her family lives in Russia. There are some where her family's research has been corrupted by this evil corporation that kind of has its claws into them, things like that. And so in every single version, she's encountering other versions of her parents, her friends, and the killer. And in each dimension, she begins to realize a little bit more of all the different people they could be, more of the different people she could be, sort of the possibilities she has for her own darkness. And she begins to realize that the story of her father's death may not be as straightforward as she thought it was. So, as you can tell, I'm really psyched about it. I'm going to be writing a lot of it actually next week here in Buenos Aires. So, if you see me somewhere around town typing on my laptop, that's what I'm doing.
Hola, buenas noches. Más que nada, ambos es una genia y me encantaría que me firmaras el libro, pero no tengo el libro, me lo prestó una amiga y así te conocí. La pregunta es, tengo 2 necesito. La pregunta principal es, ¿en qué te basaste para crear a Bianca, que es un personaje que amo y no sé si fue algo que te parecías a vos o un personaje completamente nuevo que soñaste, que te creó en algún lugar? Te amo.
Oh yeah, I wish I looked like Bianca. That red hair. I think the origin of her, I know this sounds weird, but probably the first thing I knew about her, besides the fact that she was a vampire and the child of vampires, was the thing about loving astronomy. because as you know, she's always got her telescope and she always loves the stars and anything to do with that. And I feel like, I don't know how I knew that about her at first. Sometimes you just hit on a detail about a character, you go, what does that mean? But I think it's actually kind of a good metaphor for Bianca because she is a little bit dreamy and she's very bright and she's very focused, but I think sometimes she's looking so far into the distance that she fails to see sort of what's right in front of her, which is one of the reasons that I like the romance with her and Lucas. You know, Lucas is somebody who sort of brings her back into the here and now. And so that was, I guess that was how she came into being.
Hola, quería preguntarte si hay algún porqué de los nombres de los personajes están en español en vez de en inglés, como Bianca, Lucas, Nadia. Quería saber si hay un porqué para eso simplemente. Gracias.
When I name characters, I try to think of what their parents would have picked as a name and why. Because of course, this is how we get names. And also I think knowing something about a character's parents or how they got their name and what people's expectations and thoughts were tells you a little bit about where that person comes from. Like with Bianca, her parents know that she's supernatural. They know she's going to be around for centuries and centuries. They also know a lot of names come in and out of style. The same name that is a really hip, awesome name for a little girl in 1900, maybe not so much today. But so they thought, well, we need a name that's going to last. And so they chose a name from Shakespeare because they knew Shakespeare's been around for about 500 years. It looks good to be around for about another 500. And even if the name Bianca is someday not popular, she can always say, my parents love Shakespeare, and that would be, you know, a completely reasonable way for her to have that name. You know, Lucas, that's a very sort of matter-of-fact, down-to-earth name. You know, his mom isn't going to name him anything, you know, like, you know, Gabriel, blah, 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 blah. You know, Kate, she's kind of tough. She's going to name her kid something that's sort of simple and tough and direct. Balthazar is actually one of my favorites because, you know, his parents were religious people back in the 1600s who were connected to the Puritan community. And Balthazar, of course, is one of the three wise men from the Bible. Now, believe it or not, he got off easy in the Puritan boy name sweepstakes because Puritans, they would name their kids anything. Seriously, a popular name for a little boy, a little baby boy, just imagine you're looking at this infant in your arms, they would say, we will name him Wrath of God. You know, it's like, you know, Wrath of God, get in the house. Get in the house. You know, I mean, if you're going to play professional sports, that may work for you, but I just have to feel like, you know, in school, that's awkward, you know. So he did okay with that one. But, and then of course they love to name girls after virtues, which is how Charity has her name. You know, she doesn't quite embody that virtue, but that was the idea they had about these things. With the Spellcaster series, Nadia, it's one of those names that sort of works in every single culture. And one thing that you learn in the book, it's not a main plot point, but it is there. Her father actually emigrated to the United States as a young boy from Iran in the 1970s. And it's a name that is popular in both Iranian and American culture, so he chose that name because that was a name, you know, that sounded beautiful, like, you know, to his dad and to the in-laws and everything. And then Mateo, the love interest there, his dad is a native of Mexico, so he is named Mateo. And the best friend is named Verlaine because her parents thought it would be cute to put the grandmother's names together, Vera and Elaine, Verlaine. And she's like, you know, I think if they knew that was also the name of a poet who died of syphilis, they would have picked something else. But she's stuck with it.
Primero, gracias por haber venido a Argentina. Y lo que quería preguntar era, ya sé que dijiste que no ibas a hacer una secuela de Voz Oscura, pero ¿vamos a saber alguna vez si Alex y Tess van a tener alguna clase de futuro juntos sin mucho problema y si la hermandad alguna vez nos va a encontrar?
I don't think there's any way they're ever going to end up in the Brotherhood. I do think Tess and Alec make it. But I don't know that they live a life free of trouble. Like if I ever get to revisit them, it wouldn't be more of their story specifically, but I could definitely see a story set at some other point in history where maybe a much older Tess and Alec, come into play. Or who knows, their kids, their grandkids could possibly be out there having adventures and running afoul of this again. But yeah, when they manage to sort of defeat the Brotherhood at the end, I think they're past the worst crisis. That and the Titanic sinking, that crisis too.
Hola. Quería saber si alguna vez hicieron una adaptación cinematográfica de toda la saga. ¿Quién cree que sean los actores perfectos para representar el papel a los personajes?
I always try not to get those people in my head because if The Beautiful Day should ever come when they would make it a movie or a TV show, then I don't want to go, oh, that person's all wrong. I would like to be very open to it. And also I have a really bad tendency in my head when I'm thinking of people. I don't think of actors who are actually the right age. I think of adult actors, and then in my head I youth them until to my head they look like that as, like their teenage selves, and then you actually see pictures of them as teenagers and they never look like that actually. But, so yeah, I try not to do that. I'm trying to think whether there's anybody that's really in my head. I do know that on this book that I'm working on now, the Firebird trilogy, one of the male guys, Theo, I do know he is the teenage version, and I'm old enough that I actually remember the teenage version of Robert Downey Jr. Theo is 100% 1980s Robert Downey Jr., and unfortunately he's almost as much trouble.
Hola, leí por ahí que, no sé si vivís en Nueva Orleans, bueno, yo soy de las que tenemos 30 y te leemos, entonces como que Nueva Orleans siempre refleja a Anne Rice y vampiros, entonces es como si eso te inspiró y fundió todo para escribir sobre vampiros, el hecho de vivir en Nueva Orleans.
New Orleans is a very spooky and awesome place. That said, I didn't actually move back there until about a year and a half ago. So I'd written most of this series before that, but I did live there during the 1990s, and I actually lived upstairs from some people who self-identified as vampires. That was how they introduced me. They had filed their teeth, points, everything. But I have to say they were always really polite, and they were the only people in that apartment building besides me who were not selling drugs. So they were my favorite neighbors. I was like, I'm gonna go talk to vampires. So who knows, maybe that ended up playing a role.
Bueno, y ahora nos esperamos en el stand de Random House Fundador y Pabellón Verde.